How to overcome perfectionism. Are you a perfectionist? If so, you're not alone. Many people struggle with perfectionism, and it can be a difficult habit to break. Perfectionism can lead to fear and self-doubt, which can interfere with your work and relationships. In this speech, I will discuss some tips for overcoming perfectionism and breaking the cycle of fear and self-doubt. What is perfectionism? Perfectionism is the belief that you must be perfect to be happy or successful. This can lead to setting unrealistic standards for yourself, which can be difficult to meet. Perfectionists often have a fear of failure, and they may doubt their abilities. They may avoid taking chances or attempting new activities as a result of this. How does it impact our life? Perfectionism can hurt your life in many ways. It can lead to procrastination, as you may put off tasks that you think are too difficult to complete perfectly. This can interfere with your work and personal relationships. You may also become anxious or depressed if you feel like you're not meeting your high standards. The differences between perfectionists and high achievers. One important way that perfectionism differs from high achievement is where your focus lies. You can be proud of your accomplishments if you're aiming for greatness, and use your missteps as opportunities to grow. However, if you are a perfectionist, your focus is on avoiding mistakes and being perfect, which can lead to unhappiness and a fear of taking risks. There are a few key things to keep in mind when you're trying to overcome perfectionism. First, remember that mistakes are part of the learning process and that they don't define you as a person. Second, focus on your effort rather than the outcome. Third, permit yourself to be imperfect. Here are some steps you can take to maintain a healthier attitude. 1. Make a cost-benefit analysis. When you find yourself obsessing over details or worrying that something isn't perfect, stop and ask yourself, what is the cost of this perfectionism? What am I sacrificing by insisting on this level of perfection? You can begin to determine whether perfectionism is worth it or not by making a deliberate effort to balance the costs and benefits of your attitude. 2. Begin to recognize your tendencies. One of the best ways to overcome perfectionism is to become aware of when you're doing it. Once you're aware of the times when you tend to strive for perfection, you can start to catch yourself and make a different choice. You may not realize how pervasive perfectionism can be, but by becoming more aware of your patterns, you're in a better position to alter them. If you can, try to record your perfectionistic thoughts as they pop into your head. Taking some time at night to go over your day and remember the moments when you felt pride or disappointment will help give you better insight into your triggers. This will help you be more aware of perfectionistic thoughts when they occur in the future. You can even journal your feelings about these thoughts, but don't feel you've failed if you don't have time to do this. 3. Recognize that your thoughts aren't reality. A huge part of overcoming perfectionism is recognizing that your thoughts and opinions about yourself are not reality. Just because you think you're not good enough, doesn't mean that it's true. A lot of the time, perfectionists tend to have what is called black and white or all or nothing thinking patterns. This means that we see things in extremes, with no room for shades of gray. So if we make one tiny mistake, we see ourselves as complete failures. This kind of thinking is quite irrational, but it can be very hard to break out of the perfectionism mindset and see things more clearly. If you find yourself thinking in black and white terms, try to challenge your thoughts. As an example, instead of thinking, I can't believe I made that blunder, I'm such an idiot, try countering it with a more realistic thought like, everyone makes mistakes. I'll take away something from this and do better next time. 4. Be kind to yourself. If you're used to being hard on yourself, it can be tough to start being kinder. But it's so important. One of the best things you can do for yourself is to start practicing self-compassion. Self-compassion means extending compassion to oneself in times of suffering, recognizing that as a human being, one is not perfect, and offering kindness and understanding to oneself. If you're not sure how to be self-compassionate, here are a few ideas. If you were in your friend's shoes, what would you want them to say to you? If a friend came to you feeling down about themselves, would you tell them they're worthless? Of course not. So why do we say these things to ourselves? Forgive yourself. We all make mistakes, and it's important to forgive yourself for yours. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being present at the moment and can help you to stop dwelling on past mistakes or worrying about the future. Take these concepts and give them a try for yourself. Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all solution to perfectionism, so find what works for you and go with it. 5. Focus on the positive. It's easy to focus on our mistakes and dwell on what we could have done better. But it's so important to focus on the positive, too. Every time you do something well, no matter how small it may seem, pat yourself on the back. Congratulate yourself for a job well done. Over time, this will help to boost your confidence and self-esteem. 6. Set realistic standards. One of the main reasons perfectionists tend to struggle is because they set unrealistic standards for themselves. They expect themselves to be perfect, and when they're not, they feel like failures. If you want to overcome perfectionism, it's important to start setting realistic standards. This doesn't mean lowering your standards altogether, it just means being more realistic and achievable. For example, instead of telling yourself that you need to get an A on every test, tell yourself that as long as you try your best, you'll be happy with the result. 7. Break down tasks into smaller steps. Another way to set realistic standards is to break down tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. If you're working on a big project and feeling overwhelmed, try breaking it down into smaller tasks. You can avoid feeling overwhelmed by taking things one step at a time. 8. Change your self-talk. One of the most important things you can do to overcome perfectionism is to change your self-talk. If you're constantly putting yourself down and telling yourself you're not good enough, it's no wonder you're struggling with perfectionism. Instead of beating yourself up, try talking to yourself more positively. Congratulate yourself when you do something well, and forgive yourself when you make a mistake. Over time, this will help to change your overall attitude and outlook. 9. Enjoy the process. One of the best things you can do to overcome perfectionism is to focus on enjoying the process, not just the result. When you're working on a project, take the time to enjoy it. Don't just focus on getting it done as quickly as possible. For example, if you're painting a picture, take the time to appreciate the colors and the process of creating something. Remember, there's no such thing as perfect. So instead of striving for perfection, focus on enjoying the journey. 10. Learn to handle criticism with contempt. If you want to overcome perfectionism, you need to learn how to handle criticism with contempt. This doesn't mean being rude or disrespectful to the person who is critiquing you. It just means learning to take their criticism with a grain of salt. Remember, no one is perfect. And even if someone is criticizing you, it doesn't mean they're right. So instead of getting defensive, try to listen to what they're saying and then make the decision for yourself. 11. Find an activity that relaxes you. One of the best things you can do to overcome perfectionism is to find an activity that relaxes you. This could be anything from reading to hiking to yoga. The important thing is that it's something you enjoy and that helps you to relax and distress. When you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, take some time for yourself and do something that relaxes you. This will help you to clear your mind and focus on what's important. 12. Get help from a therapist. If you're struggling to overcome perfectionism on your own, it's important to get help from a therapist. A therapist can help you to understand the root of your perfectionism and work on changing your thinking patterns. If you're struggling with perfectionism, don't hesitate to reach out for help. Conclusion. While it can be difficult to overcome perfectionism, it is possible to start living a more balanced life by trying out the tips above. If you're struggling, don't hesitate to reach out for help from a therapist or other professional. With time and patience, you can learn how to let go of your need for perfection and live a happier life. FAQs. 1. Is there anything like healthy perfectionism? Yes, it is possible to be a healthy perfectionist. Healthy perfectionists set realistic standards for themselves and don't beat themselves up when they make mistakes. They also focus on enjoying the process, not just the result. 2. What are some of the benefits of overcoming perfectionism? Some of the benefits of overcoming perfectionism include increased self-esteem, improved mental and physical health, better relationships, and increased productivity. 3. What are some of the risks associated with perfectionism? Some of the risks associated with perfectionism include anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and substance abuse. 4. How can I tell if I'm a perfectionist? If you find yourself constantly striving for unattainable standards, beating yourself up when you make mistakes, or avoiding new experiences out of fear of failure, then you may be a perfectionist. 5. What is the best way to deal with criticism? The best way to deal with criticism is to learn to take it with contempt. This means that you should not take the critic's opinion personally and instead use it as an opportunity to learn and grow.